Greetings, peace, love, and light, peace, love, and light. It is Mikael, the traveling medicine man, right here, and this is our Ancient Future Fridays. And I'm in an art gallery right now, so y'all hear different noises and stuff in the background. Just know I'm out here active. I'm at the Solar Punk Vacation Art Gallery, and I'm here supporting my brother Peace. He displaying his art today, and also I'll be doing a talk and presentation with Brother Peace, and also with our good brother Steve D'Angelo. The space that we at right now, it's a beautiful space. If you ever out in San Francisco, you feel me? Come out here to these two spaces. The first space is a live Worms gallery. It's an art gallery out here in San Francisco. And also, we in another space, Professor Siegel's. This is a beautiful space out here in San Francisco, California, where they're advocating for art, plant medicine, many different just natural ways of living. And today we having a very special Ancient Future Fridays with a very special guest. Our good sister Acacia Lewis is getting ready to join us. Conversation with Acacia, and she's going to just come in with her divine expertise and knowledge. Acacia, she is a researcher, also a very, very tapped in with the mycelium mushrooms. How you doing? Hey,
Hey, I'm
Acacia.
doing pretty good. How's it going, friend?
It's going good. It's going well. I'm at this art gallery right now, the Solar Pumpification Art Gallery, in support of Brother Peace. He's displaying his art tonight, and we're doing a talk to as well with Steve D'Angelo. So yeah, don't mind if you hear different noises and stuff in the background. I'm in the most quiet space I can be at right now, but I definitely want to honor what we agreed on with Ancient Friday for today.
Yeah, and if you can't do it today, I don't mind rescheduling if it's not convenient for you. Just know.
Oh no, it's good. It's good. I'm in the space right now, and yeah. Can you hear me? Cool. Is it? Can you hear me well? Okay. Yeah, I got my headphones on, so yeah. But how your day flowing? How's everything going for you?
Really good, really good. Yeah, I just ended up cooking dinner and having some delicious food and yeah,
Hmm.
delicious
Okay.
food like stir-fried potatoes, turmeric, fennel, all that good stuff.
Okay. That sounds good. Maybe we have to get some of your recipes in.
I love to cook. So uh, my problem is it just kind of comes out of my head, from my upbringing. So I'll have to
Yeah.
kind of sit down and write them all.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. So yeah, I was just letting folks know I'm out here in San Francisco at this art gallery, and yeah, it's good to have you on for this Ancient Future Fridays. I created this space for knowledge of ancient information, but also solutions for the future. But definitely living in the time and now, manifesting right now. So I know you all about exploration. The mycelium and mushrooms. So and many other things. So we just wanted to have you on and yeah, share some information with the people.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I'm really thankful for the connection I have with you and Brother Peace and the other brothers and sisters in the Oakland Bay Area. I'm not in the Bay Area anymore. Right now, I'm in Texas. And so I'm spending time helping my parents and taking care of, things that need to be done. Matter of fact, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to go clean the mess I made in the kitchen, you know.
Okay, that's what's up.
Um, yeah, yeah. And I'm about to go to India in a couple of weeks here. And
Mm,
I'm also going to be live casting into the retreat at Ghana. Um,
right.
and but I won't be there physically. I won't be there physically this time just because trying to get Ghanaian visa, even with a month to spare, is very challenging. You got to mail your visa, you got to mail your passport to the consulate and embassy,
Yeah.
and sometimes it takes them a couple weeks to get back to you. So we just decided to do a live for that event. I'll
Okay,
be
that's
going live like
cool.
6 days in a row for the retreat in Ghana, but they'll be doing ayahuasca. They'll be having yoga, qigong. It's just a healer's retreat that they're having out there, and I'm 100,000% in support of it. I actually left one of my sacred instruments there, my hand carved jaguar tepe from Chris Eisner.
Yeah.
Yeah, Basta is in Ghana with the group of folks, and for me to leave an instrument with a group of practitioners is basically me putting my stamp and saying like I really trust you guys, and I'm really grateful that you're doing really good work.
Yeah, no, give thanks. I was definitely curious and was going to ask you about that retreat in Ghana. And as well, if you do need some connections on the visa, we do travel tours to Ghana with Repair Nations, and we have some good connections with some good people from Ghana who work right at the embassy in DC that can help expedite the visa process. So it's in the future for your awareness. You need some support, I
Oh,
got you.
great. Well, then that definitely that would help this time, but it's okay.
Uh-huh.
Getting a visa to India takes 20 minutes. So,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's what's up. Yeah, I haven't been to India, but been hearing some great things about it. I heard it has some big holy festival there this January that happens only
Oh yeah,
every 150
Mahakumbha
years.
Mela.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
you
right,
heard it
right,
from
right.
Magi,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The guy, the
yeah,
market. Yeah, me and Magi are friends. I need to actually check in on how he doing.
yeah.
He really like to make weapons and objects of power and jewelry
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. He really channeling that ancient future energy.
Mm-hmm.
he's an old school yogi. Yeah,
Yes.
he actually showed me pictures of him when he was my age. And there he was, sitting on top of a snow leopard's pelt in meditation in a cave in India, and
Hmm. Yeah, Magi, he's powerful. He's one of the elders that that I've been following the path that I've been building with him and inspiring me. So it's definitely good to have some good elders. That's like I said, very ancient, keeping
our
information and knowledge.
storage units were in the same building, so we ran into each other like a bunch by not on
Oh,
accident, but
yeah.
I'd see him walk into a storage unit, and he'd see me
Mhm.
walking in the unit, dressed out, decked out, all
Wow.
fancy stuff on. He was like, "So tell me, what are you coming in January?" And I missed out. I didn't get to go in January and
Yeah.
stuff, but
Nah, me
I'm
either.
I'm going with my lineage. I'm going with my teacher and his students and such, and so we're going as a group,
Mhm.
and it's going to be a big change for me actually what I'm planning to do. So
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a beautiful thing. I'm happy to hear that, and it's good that we got many connections. That's what's up. But yeah, this episode, we want to talk about a few different things. But before we start, do you want to introduce yourself to the people and let everybody know what you service you offer to the world?
sure. I am a unlicensed professor in the underground psychedelic movement, and I specialize in cultural anthropology for psychonauts and creating customized paths to learning non-dual states of awareness, depending on what tradition or culture you want to study. Rather than appropriate, I teach the philosophy of those traditions so that you can better understand the vantage point that these cultures see the world from. And if you look at the way that they see the world,
Mm,
through their lens of what is consciousness, what is awareness, how does it move, how does it change, what part does the human play in this beautiful life and experience that we're all
mm,
having. Once you see the diversity points of view,
mhm,
you start to respect the individual creative power that these groups had and the relationships they have specifically even today with plant medicine. And it's so important to give people a wider aperture than what we see in the West. Going to conferences and you see somebody on a stage and you don't really get to interface with their childhood, how they grew up, what were their likes and dislikes, what kind of food did they eat, what kind of games did they play, what kind of poetry do they read, and instead of just looking at it as what it is exclusive to a group of folks, learning to appreciate what it means to those people for yourself, you know. And
indeed.
through appreciation, you learn faster. Through appreciation, you also learn respect and
Mm,
reverence. And instead of being abject to the culture or adjacent to the culture, you run your intentions parallel to those traditional beliefs, and you understand that you yourself are you irregardless of what you study, and that's part of
mm,
your path, and destiny is understanding what feels right absolutely for you. And it may have to do with seemingly other traditions and other countries and other teachers, but when you immerse yourself you take the other away and you merge, you allow it to become a part of you, and you really let in what feels right, not just what you were told should feel right. Because being someone who is a mixed, partially African American, have lots of other, you know a smorgasbord of genetic material here,
yes.
you know it's so easy to say my blackness it should be grounded in African spirituality or my blackness should be grounded in Christianity. However, a lot of people grow up thinking that their race is a religion automatically,
Mm,
that in order to participate in the social dynamic of one's appearance, you have to conform to certain patterns that have been well trodden by your ancestors or groups. And the truth is, we're world travelers. We've traveled the oceans, we've traveled the stars,
mm,
and there's nothing on the face of this planet that has not been seen or touched or imagined for the last 100,000 years by indigenous peoples. And we oftentimes separate African from indigenous, the word, they separate it because they want to specify. But the word Africa is a country, is the name of a continent. But it doesn't characterize or box in how far those people from Africa traveled and all the things they gleaned, in their time abroad with other groups, and the impact they had on those groups is profound wherever you look. I mean, if you go to the Tibetan plateaus, you're going to see Tibetan women wearing micro braids, and even in it's very popular to go into Oakland black beauty shops and see the same hairstyle that's indigenous to the Tibetan plateaus being, put on, 17-year-old, 18-year-old African American women hair. It's these tiny little braids. And these braids have meaning and significance. And this is something that has been around, you know, um, since before we were quote unquote Homo erectus, Homo australis. Um, our earliest ancestors, they're finding out more and more there's such a diversity in species of human. And some of those species of human have not died out. They've survived,
right.
and so I was like, go beyond race, go beyond skin color, go beyond species, and you're going to find that there is a common thread of human intelligence that's been woven, and it's woven through appreciation and common sense. It's what people said, this makes sense. Honoring our elders makes sense. This is how we keep social order. This is how we perpetuate the stories, how we preserve information. Chanting, singing songs makes sense. Oral traditions started and never ended, really. We're still trying to preserve them as best we can. You
Mhm.
know, there are certain things that are endogenous to our humanity, life, death, birth, sexuality, food, you know, that wherever you look around the world, you see how different groups collaborated and how their way of doing things mirrors or almost is identical to other people's ways of doing things, even though they might be 14,000 miles away and have never physically interacted. The stories traveled, the
Yes.
ideas, the thought forms traveled. And I think that sacred plants are like the cell phone of the ancients, where people would take, these entheogenic substances and reach higher states of consciousness and
Mm,
amplify these
yes.
values and technologies to other groups, and I personally think that when wisdom comes down, it doesn't just come down in one country or one place or to one people,
Yes.
and I think that a lot of us who are raised, kind of post post civil rights, Martin Luther King, um Black Panther time period, 90s and up, basically, a lot of us kind of feel like the fire in our bones is pointing a different direction than it has to the last generation. Last generation was pushing for the liberation of the physical body, you know? And I think that our generation is really pushing now for the liberation of the mind and the soul,
Give thanks. Give thanks,
you
Acacia. I
know?
appreciate you dropping that information. And very powerful how you connect all the different Afro-Indigenous cultures and you travel to the lands and through the anthropology and everything. And I came a lot into awareness of you through the 2020 psychedelic conference out in Detroit. Shout out to our great ancestors, Baba Kalindi IE, who was a staple within expanding consciousness and spirituality and information about particularly mushrooms, but plant medicine in particular. So I want to ask you a question about what you said about the mind, and what is in the current time like a way we can free our mind, outside of, let's say, this plant medicine.
Well, first, we have to recognize that we don't know our minds very well
Mm.
in the West. And when I say that, many people get uncomfortable. They're like, "Oh, I was born with this. I'm old. I've lived. I've experienced. I've had trips and stuff." That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something where it's going to take a lot of open mindedness in
Mm-hmm.
order for someone like myself to help other individuals who I know are well traveled and well experienced and knowledgeable intellectual people to understand that there are certain keys to the mind that are only accessible through performing certain levels of practice in accessing higher states of awareness. And these higher states of awareness are present in your mind right now. And that's where I think a lot of people get it twisted. They're trying to build a match car, but they've got a spaceship
Huh.
automatically.
Oh
And
wow.
I
Okay.
think that a lot of people take classes hoping to build that quote unquote matchbox car to go places, explore the multiverse and such. And they do practices like breath work, meditation, mindfulness, trying to build a mind that can travel, right? But they don't realize that the 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 software is built on a hardware, and we think the hardware is the physical body. But I'm suggesting that there's a hardware of the mind that we can't
Okay.
see.
Okay, indeed. I'm processing everything you just said right now because, like you said, it is different spiritual practices that you can do, and I know that you do offer online classes through your divine
Master
master alchemy class.
alchemy.
Yes, yes. And so, like, what's like the practices that you like advocate for people outside of just working with the plant medicine for them to get access to their mind?
Well, for starters, there's a lot that's been kept from Americans in particular through the language barrier that exists between Asian cultures and African cultures. There, once the language barrier dissolves, you realize you have so much in common that it really makes you feel at home, really comfortable when you go to these monasteries and you talk to these old monks and stuff. You feel very comfortable once you meet someone who speaks good English, or you speak good enough Tibetan, or you speak good enough um, Mandarin. It
Hmm.
dissolves. And I want to say something very important about that. Doing plant medicine has its place, and so does practicing something called calm abiding and shamatha
Mm.
practice. Vipassana practices also have a place. And that place is to help you to identify the ground or the base nature of the human mind. What is the ground floor? And I think a lot of us exaggerate the ground floor in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
We think that our minds need to be freed from something that can only, you know, dissolve, like our ego, under the influence of psychedelics. We think that our minds are intrinsically either one, sinful, broken, um, limited. Like we watched the movie Lucy, right? And we
Hmm.
see Lucy and she's got like more access to her brain. So we think that we need to have some sort of a break, a breakthrough to be able to access that. And I think that the problem is we think that our minds are locked in our brains.
I was just about to ask you that. Is it a difference between the mind and the brain?
Big difference.
Okay, okay. Can you break
Because
it
the
down?
brain can die
Okay,
and the mind
sure.
can't.
Mm, okay. And now, is the mind, is that something that you come into this lifetime already having, or is that something you have to develop over a
No,
lifetime?
you've had it infinitely. And
Okay.
in the Buddhist tradition, it's interesting because we don't have this concept or notion of soul. We have this
Mm,
concept or notion of mind. And that
Yes.
mind is what carries from lifetime to lifetime, accruing habits, habitual behaviors,
Mm.
karmic behaviors, accruing and learning wisdom and compassion. And when your body dies, it's your mind that, if you don't have discipline and control over it in this lifetime, you're not going to have control over it when you die. And you're going to be chased by your previous actions and your delusional thought forms and your attachments and cravings for food, water, and sex, just like
Mm.
we, how we give food to the ancestors and stuff. And I'm probably going to piss some people off, but it's because of the fact that we did not learn how to discipline ourselves to not crave food, sex, and water in this life, that we give our ancestors food, fertility objects, and water. And don't think that your sexual activity in front of the altar don't count. It counts. That's an
Mm. Okay. Well, what?
offering too.
Right. Well,
And
what
that's also an
about like, you know?
invocation.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry to cut you, but what about like, you know, reproduction and like stuff like, ain't that a part of human nature, like sexuality to reproduce for life?
Right, but you want to have conscious reproduction. And I think
Okay.
that a lot of people, they want to channel and give birth to a being that knows why it's coming here.
Yes.
In order to develop a being that knows why it's coming here, you have to develop a being who had self control when they died.
Mm. Okay.
And
Yes.
so that's your whole life. And in ancient African traditions, you had training, moral and ethical training and discipline to teach you how not to cling to the physical world and the material world as being it. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
the statues of um, Inu Ori,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it looks like a Buddha head. Why? Because it is.
Right. And I was gonna tap in with you
It
about
is
that
the
too.
source of wisdom and
Mhm.
compassion. That's what a lot of Christians refer to as God. And as Christians, as Black people specifically, have been indoctrinated in Christianity, we've merged our ancestral intelligence into the Christian tradition. So many people have advanced spiritual knowledge and connection to deep and profound wisdom, even inside of the Christian container, because they're utilizing the name Jesus, but they're connected to the inner head, and the inner head that has complete access to everything that's ever been seen, everything that's ever been written, everything that's ever been done, and will ever be done, is timeless awareness. And this timeless awareness in Buddhism is called the mind.
Give thanks. I appreciate you sharing that occasion. You know what? When I first was coming to my spiritual journey, it was like a lot of images and statues in the space I stayed at of Buddha. And I started studying a little bit about Buddha. And one thing I was learning is multiple forms of Buddha for sure, but also the letting go of attachments and not being confined to anything in this realm to be able to excel and
And
extend.
that's the problem.
Okay.
Many Westerners are gate kept right there. And
Mm,
and that
okay.
that the first thing that we have to understand is that there's no Buddha that exists. There's a
Okay.
historical Buddha, but to Buddhists, Buddhas that you self-generate, all of those multiple forms that you see are all self-generated from the nature of the mind. And so that's
Okay. Okay.
the first thing I didn't learn until I initiated
Mm,
was, as Nupasika, Chin Rezig that has 1,000 arms of love and compassion. You see Avalokitesvara, it has 1,000 arms that you're looking at. It has 11 heads, 11 faces. You probably see these statues in India and Thailand, and you know, all of these, each of the faces is body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas of all periods of time, love and compassion. And then you have in every world, in the God realm, in the heaven realm, in the earthly realm, in the hell realm with the demon like beings. There's a being
mm,
that's on top of his head. That's a black, wrathful deity that can subdue even demonic beings. And you have on top of it a perfect Buddha's head, Amitabha Buddha, and then you have 1,000 arms with eyeballs in the center of their hands that are all extending
mm.
hands of supreme love and compassion. Now, that is considered the nature of the mind.
Give thanks. Okay. Now you said compassion, and that's something that
And wisdom.
and wisdom that we said that we were discussing. I'll just give my just general basic understanding of compassion from my not even from my understanding, but just
Hold
what
on,
I
hold
was
on, hold on.
taught. Okay,
We don't do that here. We're gonna
okay,
do like Wakanda. We don't intellectualize compassion.
okay, for sure. Because I was just going to just bring up.
We're not gonna
Okay,
go there.
okay, for
That's
sure.
another mistake that people
Okay.
make, is that they try to get in their heads and say, well, I think that this is compassionate
Hmm.
behavior. True wisdom and compassion is emptiness.
Mm. Okay.
Now, the word emptiness, a lot of people think is like empty like a bucket. There's absolutely nothing in there. That's not what we mean. We mean that when you overcome anger, hatred, greed, lust, aversion, attachment,
Hmm.
that there's nothing but love and compassion and emptiness there. So
For
there's
sure.
these things called five poisons. And when you just avoid these five poisons, you don't have to intellectualize it, because you're not moving from pride. You're not moving from anger. You're not moving from attachment to what you think, or aversion to what you don't like.
Hmm.
And
Yeah. No.
it
No.
leaves
Yes.
it leaves a portal. And that portal comes out genuine, clear, non-attached, compassion automatically. That is who you are. It's not something that you have to think about.
Okay. Okay. Give thanks because I was just gonna just bring up about the passion from understanding of I don't know, like not saying feeling sorry for nobody or like just being in the space of like letting things go with people because you know they went through a hardship and you feeling like you need to just be a little bit more kind and a little bit more nicer to them because they've been through a hardship.
Yeah, you see, that's the thing about karma. You recognize that when people are going through hardships, the best thing that you can do is recognize that they are a sentient being who's suffering. And
Hmm.
once you recognize that they're suffering, you just, your intention is that they be liberated from suffering, but
Hmm.
not just them, all beings. And I think that we hyper focus on people who we meet and stuff. We think that it's our job. Okay, I gotta be extra kind or extra nice to you or whatnot. And then we get caught up in the activity that we're doing, and that's attachment. And
Mm,
so we're
okay.
moving from this place of attachment to helping them, to making them feel better. And then we end up moving from our center. We're not we're we're centered when we recognize complete and total equanimity inside of ourselves, with the nature of ourselves. And so that means you don't got a bunch of thoughts in your way, you
Mm,
don't got a bunch of emotions that are fluctuating, and you visualize yourself as this being who is extending hands of love and
mm,
compassion. And so
mm.
then you effortlessly, you don't even think about it like, oh, I gotta be, or oh, I gotta do. You're extending it through your body, and it's like it you channel it, and it's crazy because you don't even know that you're helping people. It's so crazy because you're not attached to that idea of, oh, I've got to go do this for someone, oh, I got to go do that for someone. No, you're moving, that is your center. You're moving from that compassion self that is all pervasive. And then you start noticing that instead of you going to help other people, it comes through them to help you effortlessly,
Okay.
because it's not inside your body, it's not inside your head, it's infinite. It exists
Mm,
infinitely, this mind. And so it's said, there's three bodies to the Buddha. There's Nirmanakaya, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya. And the Dharmakaya is considered to be what's in our minds, that we have complete and total, we're made up of the Dharmakaya completely. It's like infinite holographic molecules, and even smaller than that, the molecules, there's nothing in between them. And even that nothing space is something. And that nothing that's called something is Dharmakaya.
okay, Dharmakaya. Yes,
And so
for sure.
that's the bliss, or not the bliss, the reality body. So the reality body comprises of everybody, right? That means I'm
Hmm.
talking to you, you're part of that reality body.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if I recognize you as such, then I'm going to treat you as such, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And so that's compassion. I just
Okay. Yes.
recognize it to the body of the Buddha.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
you know how you say
Yes.
here in Lakesh Alakin, the light in me recognizes and appreciates the light in you? In
Mm-hmm.
Lakesh
Yes.
Alakin, how we say in Oaxaca, Mexico, on the Red Road?
I'm not as familiar, but I appreciate you letting me know.
In Lakesh Alakin is a Mexica term of, it's a greeting, and
Mm.
it's also a poem, and it's saying that I recognize the divine in you that's in me.
Yes. Thanks.
And so by recognizing the Dharmakaya, you recognize that all sentient beings have the same mind.
Yes.
They just don't know they have that mind.
Indeed.
That's
No, for
infinite.
sure.
They
For
don't
sure. Yeah. I mean,
know that they've got infinite access to the ultimate perfect experience. And relatively, they're having an imperfect human experience.
mm,
But they don't know that they have access to an ultimately perfect experience. And that ultimately perfect experience is the realization that that your mind is the Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya, bliss body, and that Buddha essence is all pervasive love and compassion.
mm, thanks.
And so once they realize that, then they're freed from the suffering of attachment, and they can start to program their minds accordingly. And a simple mantra that people hear, Om Mani Padme Hum, is overcoming pride, overcoming all the five poisons, greed, all the things I listed. That mantra, each syllable absolves a different poison. And by the
Mm,
time you finish the six syllables, then it closes the doors to the hell realms, to the lower births of the animal realms, to the
mm,
rebirth in the limited God realm, and it brings you back to human birth. So it guarantees that you won't get stuck living as an insect or an animal or a demon or a god that's going to die.
mm,
And so it shuts the doors to those dimensions.
for sure. Oh, that's deep.
And,
You're going deep right now.
and then
Wow.
it cleanses the five organs too.
Okay.
And so learning how to deploy this technology in our minds to take us to ground zero before we grew up, when we were little babies, when we were perfect and completely innocent in our minds, when we didn't have any worries or objections before we got here. That's like the elevator that takes you from ego to zero.
Wow. Wow. No, no, for real. I mean, some experiences that you're talking about, I had during like my first DMT experience when I had the DMT smoke of a mimosas hot stiller. And I went into a higher realm where my mind kind of fragmented into like I felt like I was a crystal, or like it was like different mirrors and reflections of myself, and it told me that I'm a part of everything, that I'm a part of all creation, that I'm connected with everybody, and that we're all just individual cells of the same living being, basically, of the Most High. And so, with that, I want to go into another question about high doses of wisdom. And I know you were very well known for high doses of mushrooms, but what is a high dose of wisdom to you?
Manjushri.
I'm not familiar with that is. What is that?
Manjushri is the personification or god of wisdom in Buddhist tradition. It's holding a sword and a lotus flower, and is considered to be the source or the personification of the source of all wisdom. And it said that, you know how you say like there's Maitreya Buddha who's coming back, and it said there were like 10,000 Maitreya Buddhas.
Uh-huh.
They would not be able to cognize how Manjushri puts one foot in front of the other. That's how big of a magnitude of wisdom more um, this form has, and Manjushri, there are sciences to just Manjushri. It's similar to how in Africa we have sciences to Arunmala. And Arunmala is the Orisha of wisdom that can sit upon your head. And so, praying to have good sense is one thing. Becoming united with good sense is a whole nother experience. because it tells you what to do every step of the way, and you can't mess up. And it's the most liberating feeling to know that you can tap into something that can guide you in such a way that you don't have to go through continued suffering and confusion that comes from a loss of identity with the true self, which is the mind that is unrestrained, that isn't tied down by kleshas or attachments. And a lot of people become attached, in our heads. I don't know how many times I've taken entheogens and I see that people who I talk to on a daily basis, something that they said or something that they did got attached in my mind, and I started playing it on a tape. And it's like being in a concentration camp sometimes in your head. You live this life and you go through things, and something upsets you, or something makes you happy, or something happens to you, and you try to blame that person, and then it forms this attachment in your head, and it just starts pulling you down because you have mistaken your nature with being limited by something. And because you created this notion of limitation, um, you start to become energetically drained and start to have all sorts of issues, and you've got to let go. And a lot of people say cut the cord, all of this stuff. That's an exaggeration. If you just take the elevator to the ground floor level, there's a being there, the final boss, whatever you want to call it, that we're born with, that has infinite capacity for love and compassion. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to go and respond to that person or do anything for that person. It just means you have to reach that state of stability in your mind where you know who you are, and those thought forms aren't draining you anymore. You let the bodhisattva do the work. You let the energy that you're channeling that comes from the divine realms purify the obscurations, what is being obscured, what's causing you confusion, what's causing you suffering, what's causing you distress. You allow it to burn away those layers that cause you to have challenges. And in real life, in real time, you start making progress away from suffering, away from confusion, away from being restrained by attachment. And it's so amazing, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, being able to release and be in a pure state of being where you can accept everything and be a part of
But
everything. I mean,
doing it every day and every second of every day is different than waiting to have a trip. It's different than waiting to have a purification ceremony. It's different than having to meditate to get there. That's got to be your baseline.
yes.
And so I tell people, meditate 15 minutes a day and develop that baseline equanimity, and then it'll be like Rain X to negativity. You know how you go to the car wash and you pay that extra dollar to get the Rain X, and the Rain X makes your windshield, just the drops fall off the windshield. That is the Rain X for your mind. I'm like, put a condom on.
Okay.
Protect yourself.
Okay.
Getting
No,
to
I
know
feel that.
your true mind is total protection. You know because then you realize that the flip side of you're like, oh, I'm under spiritual attack. Well, this person wants to do something, this person trying to attack me or whatever. A lot of people get to that place where they message me and say, I'm afraid on my mushroom trip, or I'm afraid because this person threatened me, or this person put me in the freezer, or whatever, right? We have that in our community. We have a lot of black magic practitioners who are masquerading as entheogenic mamas and papas and stuff, right? So I get people randomly sometimes who feel like they've been attacked by somebody. And I'm like, well, if you know the nature of your mind, there's a form, because it has infinite forms, but there's one form called Mahakala, which is the father of all beings who are from all of the hell realms and can subdue any demon, can subdue and vanquish, has a curved knife and a noose, and is holding some eyeballs that are disembodied. And he's coming with 6 arms, and he's stomping, and he's big, and he's black, and he's got fangs and fire coming out of his hair and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's who lives in my mind. You want to try it?
Right, right. Nah, I don't
We're
play
gonna
with
cut
that.
through. We're gonna cut heads will roll, heads
Right,
will roll. You know, and we have Kali in India, but no
right.
one knows about Mahakala. Mahakala is the consort of Kali.
Right. That sounds like Kali. Everything you just described right there. That's deep, man.
But a lot of people don't know how to channel it because they don't know that it is them. And so we have to teach the fundamentals of Buddhism, not the westernized, jargony stuff. We got to teach the basics, which is what they actually believe in different traditions. Because there's three different traditions: Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. And the Vajrayanas are the ones who have been known to work with sacraments.
Yes. Okay.
And so I'm Vajrayana, not Theravada, and I'm not Mahayana, I'm Vajrayana. And
Right.
there's an important key because we have tools for the mind, like Mahamudra, there's Dzogchen lineages and such, but in our tradition, we have Mahamudra, we have the 6 yogas of Naropa and 6 yogas of Naguma, and we have specific trainings to help you to get to know your true nature as being inseparable from the Buddha's mind, body, and speech.
Right. Okay, Acacia.
And so
Yes.
that's the practice, and you start off with things like shamatha, and then you get into things like vipassana, and you might go on retreats where you do fasting and silent meditation, and then you do sadhanas, and you take empowerments where they give you permission to practice the visualization of specific deities, and these specific deities are said to not actually exist because they come from the nature of the mind, so they're self-generated, self-manifested forms of the Buddha. And that's what makes it different, is because we do a lot of tantric visualization. Now, a lot of people hear tantra and they think some other stuff, but this is the Tibetan lineage of tantric visualization that originated, also some of it from Kriya yoga as well, from India.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so the fruit of the path is what people miss out on. They don't know if that they do certain practices. In 3 days, you could dissolve 40,000 eons of negative karma in 3 days. And so
Okay.
it's a level of effectiveness, you know? They don't know the fruit of the path, nor do they know the path, nor do they know the four noble truths, the most basic fundamental things. The four noble truths, just so that anybody asks, is that there is suffering. There are causes to suffering, or a cause of suffering. And there's a path that leads away from suffering, and then there's an end to suffering. And it's the path that leads away from suffering that we don't take seriously in America. We kind of we kind of just adopt these principles, but if we don't take vows not to lie, not to cheat, not to steal, not to abuse people, sometimes we're not conscious of it when we make mistakes. And we think about it later and we're like, man, if I had just been conscious when I was doing it in the mushroom trip or the ayahuasca journey, if I had just been conscious, then I wouldn't have done it. And so, to develop conscious activity, we have to always be employing the use of our mind to clearly see what we're doing and to discern the benefit for other sentient beings, what benefit it has. And so, it helps you to be more aware. And the more aware you are, the more you become inseparable with this blissful nature, and you'll go into certain states that are just profound, for no reason, just spontaneously, without trying to seek to have a spiritual experience. You will have constant, endless spiritual experiences that are beyond the scope of the human imagination, naturally. And this is what's happening, that's been happening for 2,600 years, in this lineage of Buddhism. But because it's so secretive, and in many cases to the non initiated, it's just like kind of with Ifa. If you haven't practiced it, you don't know it. And a lot of people think they're practicing Buddhism, but they don't understand that it goes beyond seeking enlightenment. That's not it. We're not here chasing enlightenment. We're not here chasing nirvana. We're not trying to get off of the boat. the purpose of taking vows is to reach enlightenment, but is through the practice and developing genuine qualities of compassion and wisdom that are inherent to the nature of the mind, realizing the nature of the mind that leads to enlightenment. It's not, you know, it's not like an A to B path. You're going to have to go on a lot of side quests, and everything that you experience in your life is a test for that side quest, you know? And
Yes.
the real life application is through your actions, your wholesome right actions. And that's where people bypass. You know, they're trying to meditate, but they don't know what intention they're supposed to have the most effective meditation, you know?
No, indeed, indeed. Can you give us like some more like tools that you can use? You brought the word tools up. I know you really into like herbs
Yeah.
and resins and things. What's some things you use in your practice to help to activate the mind?
Well, I make tea.
Yeah,
You know,
T.
I make tea and then I'll do my practice. And I took several empowerments. And so I have a sadhana that I read every day. And I have a meditation that I do every day. And I'm also in Nundro. And for those of you who are doing Nundro, who are watching this, you know, doing prostrations is one of the best things to humble yourself and to purify your mind, is getting into, you know, your prayer pose after you've meditated and taking refuge in the nature of the mind, taking complete refuge and surrendering the ego, killing the ego voluntarily, and putting your face down in the ground, extending your arms out, and taking complete refuge, body, speech, and mind, and the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And also, you know, when you start doing Nundro, they have you do an empowerment. And so I'm not going to talk about that part, but we have a refuge tree. And everyone knows we have a refuge tree, and that has all of our lineage teachers, all of their power that we visualize. And we dissolve that into ourselves at the end of the practice. And so we become completely inseparable from every lineage enlightened elder who's come before us. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens in that refuge tree. And so and it's really infinite actually, but you know, we visualize the teacher Vajradhara, and Vajradhara is the personification of the Dharmakaya that I was talking about before. And he's blue, and he has his arms crossed with a Vajra in each hand, and earrings, looking very handsome, very very well put together, and is smiling at you with love and compassion, and that's your entire reality summed up in one form that you visualize. Your entire everything that ever has existed and ever will exist, you are taking refuge in its supreme nature, which is emptiness. And when we say emptiness, we mean infinite fertility, infinite primordial awareness. From
Mm.
anything can come from it. Anything that you could ever cognize can come from it. Anything that you can't can come from it. And that's the beauty of that
Yeah.
realization, is that you are so unlimited. You are unlimited wireless plus.
Give thanks. Give thanks. And I appreciate you giving us these visuals, speaking about these different deities and their forms
But I
and how they
recommend
look.
go to a go to a meditation center, go on retreat, you know, go and do, because I feel like the Black community needs to have a recommendation letter of where's safe to go,
Okay.
you know. And I recommend KDK in San Francisco.
Mm.
I recommend um there's a place called Odiana where you can volunteer to make the peace bells. You know, they're at the World Peace Summits, and you can go and volunteer and learn how to make stupas out of clay. You know, and you know, put in time. There's Green Gulch Meditation Center and Marin. You know, they have events, you know, every now and then that you can go to. They're open to the public. There's Berkeley Shambhala Center, you know, that has lectures. Some of my teachers come out there. You just got to see what's in your area, who's coming to town, because some of these teachers have actually attained some very high states of awareness. And there's like 17 different states of enlightenment, actually. So when people say, "Oh, I'm enlightened," and that's that, and the other, everyone thinks there's like a finality to that, and there's no finality to that. You know?
No, I feel you, and I appreciate you being an advocate and a teacher and actually applying these different practices and going to these places. But just for some folks who may not be aware, like, you know, like myself, I grew up, you know, in the hood in the inner city, and we're not like as privy to these things, and we may not be aware of the access, or may not be
Right.
as in tune with it. So, what is somebody like that? Like, what would be the path for them to like get more involved in these things?
Well, first, you want to get some books, you know, and get a really good view. Because what I said is a crash course. Like, I just dropped you in the ocean. Let me tell you, there's cities under the ocean. There's emperors of the ocean. There's so much there, you know, that a lot of people just say, oh, wow, it's so exotic. It looks so great. What she's saying sounds so wonderful, and just jump in the water and just feel like they're drowning, you know, because they
Right.
don't have the support. And so it's really important in Vajrayana tradition that you find a teacher, you know, eventually. And if it's just somebody who you look at their picture online and you just feel an instant connection with them, study their work, buy their book, download the ebook, download the audiobook. That's how you start building a connection. Because a lot of people get triggered when you say guru, but there are certain people like my like Kalindi who conduct themselves in such a way that they have earned your trust. And it's said in our tradition that you got to watch somebody for up to 12 years before you decide if they're worthy of actually being called your guru. And
Nah,
a lot
nah.
of people get scammed, you know, ripped off doing that. And yeah, Kaupu, the place I told you about, Siddhartha's intent, the place that where the event where Zongsar Khyentse Rinpoche is going to be speaking at in New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's the place to start.
Okay.
And so, you know, what I'm saying is, I've studied with teachers from all around the world. Some of my teachers come from Australia once a year to teach in America. Some of them, you know, you gotta travel hundreds of miles to catch when they're gonna be teaching. But it's worth it because for the ones who are real,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
we're all excited to see a Shamanawa shaman come to town because we think that he lives in the jungle, he lives a pure life, and he's refined. And then we find out later, you know, sex abuse scandals or whatever, you know, or we find out later, you know, uh, he's not the person that we think he is. And we get disenchanted with teachers almost altogether, you know. We get one big disappointment, but your parents gave you a precious human life. Your teacher gives you the ladder. It's really important to go and sit with people who, lifetime after lifetime, they've done nothing but teach effectively and reproduce students who can reach that enlightenment consistently. And it's amazing for me to see that even though most people don't think it exists, there are still a few teachers around whose legacy goes back 1,000 years and they're still alive.
Nah, definitely. I mean, the brother Magi, he was the one that first kind of hit me to that when he was talking about Baba G, how he's
Oh yeah,
you know, a high
oh
priest and still
yeah. You
living
know,
and
even Baba
reincarnates.
G, you
Mm-hmm.
know, he doesn't have an unbroken lineage
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
incarnations where you can say this person incarnated and left instructions for the next one to be found and for the next one to be found and left instructions of who he was getting born into, what family he was getting born into. No, we have an unbroken lineage of incarnated bodies. The teacher left notes for their students to go find the child who was being born. The child was brought directly to the monastery and then taught, and then left notes for the next one. For 16 generations, we have the longest unbroken lineage of reincarnation in the world, and that's the 17th Karmapa.
Okay, give thanks. And I'm also hearing that Tahuti or Jehudi, many ancient names of that form of being, is a reincarnation of many lifetimes that come to the earth to teach us forever. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely
Yeah,
learning more as I'm
but
going.
900 years of proof, you know, and practice. You can look up the 16th Karmapa and read dozens of books that are just profound. You can look
Mm.
at the 15th Karmapa, same way. Every lifetime, and even in this one, there's two. There's a 17th Karmapa, and there's two people who are candidates, and that's why it's a source of confusion for some people because they're like, who's the real one? But they met together and decided that they were going to work together to teach the next generation. The both of them decided they were going to work together, and
Yeah,
that's like happened before.
I do my research more on that one. But this brings me up back up to the Dalai Lama. Is that something similar?
That's the Dalai Lama got the idea from the Karmapa. He's only the
Okay.
fourth Dalai Lama. And
Okay.
then Taisutsu's 12th. And so, you
Hmm.
know, these are my teachers, you know, and so
Right.
um, I mean, even myself, you know, a lot of people say, well, how can you justify that as a black woman, you know, coming into a Buddhist lineage and nobody looks like you? Well, look at Naguma. Naguma looks identical to me. Dark brown skin, face of a 16-year-old girl. Illusion Yogini. She's the one who started the tradition I'm in, along with Sukha City and Kyungpo Naljor. That's our lineage.
Hmm.
And these people were born in South India and were melanated people. And so even though they might not be African, I'm not 100% African, but there are people in my lineage who look just like me.
No, definitely. I mean, I appreciate you, like you said earlier when you first opened up. Like, we got to look away from like skin color and so-called race, and we all part of the human family. All come from the original
No,
family.
that's part of it. Race is a part of it. What I'm saying is that in my experience, the limitations that have been placed on me are social limitations.
Okay.
And what I decided to do was to go beyond, you know, I'm going to give you an analogy. You might go to the cookout for 10 years with your family, right? And
Hmm.
then one of those years you're going to mess up. And then you're going to be the talk of the town for another 2 or 3 years as that cousin who messed up their life or whatever. And so you get kicked out of a little social circle. These social community validation circles that we're in don't last always. Something happens, somebody might die who really validated you, but we should not, as a group, be putting our social economics before our spiritual health and development. And I think that a lot of people are afraid to go beyond where their group has gone. You know and I mean that like building teachings, teachers, any of that. We've got peer economics in the
Hmm.
Black community, and the peer economics subsist when you have a trusted group of people who are spiritual people who are making progress doing a certain group of spiritual practices successfully. And generally speaking, that's been African spirituality. It's been hyper Africanized since the 60s. And that's because of the Pan African movement and all of our elders. And we give honor to them and we appreciate them and we love our Black Panthers, etc. But it's time for a new generation.
No, definitely not. No, I hear you on that. I'm on that same vibe. Carrying on the legacy and the lineage, but also growing it to the next level, but keeping the social constructs of it as much as we can. But things always change, like you said, so we got to keep
You
evolving.
have to have first-hand explorers, you know, not people who dabbled in it. A lot of my elders who talk about Buddhism, honestly, I can tell you none of them actually ordained. None of them received their names, the ones that I talked to. None of them actually went to India and took on a lifetime commitment. And that's because many chances were they had families and it was too scary, or there was racism involved at the time. And so my generation has an opportunity that was paid for by the previous generation that we're not using. And that opportunity is to authentically study and explore as much as we can in other cultures and other traditions where normally it wouldn't have been acceptable legally or financially for us to be able to. And so I see it as this: I have this privilege that my ancestors bought me, and if I don't use it, then I'm disrespecting them. And a lot of people think about it as, oh, well, you're going to another culture to learn. That's disrespecting your ancestors. No, what's disrespecting them is not utilizing, walking through the doors that they busted down so that I can gain the knowledge from the inside that they never could. That's what's disrespectful to my
Man,
ancestors.
sound like the spook that's sat at the door right now. I mean, yeah, for sure. We got to go to back to the direct lands and the direct people and even
Going where we're comfortable is not going to get us any further than we've already gone. If it was, then there would be a bunch of people in the diaspora in Africa talking about liberation from all the the gold and mineral hungry, wealthy connoisseurs, there would be active spiritual liberation happening in Africa. Africans would have revolted. There are enough people in Africa to stop the war in the Congo. There are more
Right.
than enough people in Africa to do it, but they keep asking for help from the outside. Why? Because they can't come together. This idea of the hyperdimensional tribalism and peacekeeping among African peoples is a fantasy. There are wars among African people like anywhere else in the world, where Africans are enslaving other Africans, Africans are refusing to help other Africans, and Africans themselves are turning a blind eye to things that are happening and going wrong in their own countries and cities. For instance, shea butter supply is almost running out in Ghana. Even the indigenous women who collect the shea butter from the shea butter trees are selling out to L'Oreal and other government run agencies who are buying up all the shea butter before they can even produce it themselves. Why? It's because they have not come together to collectively create a system where there's not competitive shops who are saying, oh well, I'm going to go harvest from this tree and keep it for myself, and I'm going to go harvest it from that tree and keep it for myself. We don't have any collective unity. There's still people who are competing capitalistically, and this notion that the person who has the most money and the most wealth and the most land and the most property is still very popular in Africa. And even in the spiritual traditional community, what I see is people making offerings to get more money and to get more wealth and have big families, and it does not seem altruistic to me at all.
No, I see the same thing. Honestly, I see
I'm not
the same thing.
impressed
Yes.
with the
No, I see.
values, ethically or morally, that I'm seeing coming out of the modern diaspora.
No, you real. I mean, most spiritual practices I see people are looking for their own personal prosperity and abundance, and they're not looking to come to heal the planet or connect with other people or just to really be in peace and harmony with life. You know, it's more about personal gain.
They can't until they're willing to actually let go. They say they're letting go, but they're holding on so hard. It's so hard to see. It's suffering. They're causing themselves suffering and in the process creating suffering for everybody else. And the difference is between the Buddhist practice and the African spiritual practices that I see is that you have people who are in Buddhist practice willing to give up everything but their pair of shoes and their one meal a day and help others and teach and be good influences in their community totally. Not looking for validation, not looking for success. And in Africa, we have the perfect circumstances for people to go out into the wild and have full retreats, 10-year retreats, 12-year retreats, 20-year retreats. There's so many remote places in Africa, it's not funny. Why do we not have retreat centers for meditation in Africa? It's because Africans themselves don't value it. They don't know that the wild land that they have and the beat up shoes that they have, the Westerners have preached pity to us, to where we pity ourselves enough that the clothing that we made for ourselves that were simple are no longer good enough. Now we're wearing cheap Westerners clothing in tribal environments and different tribes and using cheap Westerner supports. We're trying to achieve the American dream in Africa, and we have not realized our dream was valid and our dream was real, living inside of nature and in harmony with natural elements. And now the people who I see who are saying, oh, it's time to go back and live in harmony with nature and deal with the natural elements are no better than politicians and business owners in America who are just trying to make a cut, selling herbs and teaching uh, divination and medicine work. And I don't want to be like them anymore. I
No,
used to want to be.
I feel you. I feel you on that occasion. I mean, I went to a few countries in Africa. I'm still exploring a little bit more, but I feel like they lost a lot of traditions as well. They keep and preserving a lot of traditions, but a lot of
They're gate kept for a price.
yeah,
And so
even though,
I
like you said, like the meditation and the centers and places for people to come, it's like you said, private sanctuary is not open to everybody. You know what I'm saying?
well, they my elders like Baba Kalindi bust down doors for people like me to be able to study traditions like Kala Chakra and Tibetan Buddhism. People like Lama Crowley helped me to actually understand the principles that require letting go of your attachments to having everything your way. You know, it was hard for me to let go of my apartment in Berkeley. I loved living in Berkeley. I was paying $3,000 a month for rent, just like everybody else in Berkeley. And you know what? My students and my quality of teaching was damaged because I was trying to survive. I was trying to survive in a world where people who actually have good intentions are taken advantage of severely. And I was taken advantage of professionally and inside of the entheogenic scene teaching, where people would hire me and put me on a stage to get my brown skin and my nice smile to talk about what they wanted me to talk about just for the foot.
Oh man, I think I think the value come out. You keep going. I'm sorry, cut out for a second.
Yeah, and it was totally erased, and some of it was just kept from me, you know, discovery sessions, SF. I never got any of the recorded footage from that. In some cases, they told me that they simply didn't have enough money to record my lectures after I traveled to go and teach. And then that's when I realized that it's a pay per exposure market. Basically, they want you to come and teach and get exposure and then take that exposure from you, so you have to keep doing it and have to keep going places. And I said, you know what, I'd rather do this for free. I'd rather teach all my students for free. I'd rather help my family. I would rather focus on what really matters. I'm a widow. I've already been in an 8-year marriage where somebody died, where I was chasing money and trying to be stable. I would much rather focus on my spiritual practice and spiritual health without having to worry about trying to pay bills at the same time. I'd rather go as deep as I possibly can spiritually. And that only comes from really practicing and really letting go and moving out of your fancy apartment. Move back in with your parents. You ain't got parents? Go to Oaxaca where I lived and live on the side of a cliff like I did with 5 other hippies in one single room, making 10 pesos a week to buy flour to make tortillas. That's what I did. And people can do that, but it takes really sacrificing what you think you need. And when you realize that your mind is so much bigger than anything else, and it will bring to you exactly what you need, you don't, the world is your oyster. Palaces are your house. Banquets are your meals. And it all belongs to you. It all belongs to you. And it's all free. It's all free.
Acacia, and we appreciate love you for all your energy, your compassion, for letting go and releasing, and being in a space of this pure energy. I know it's something that it takes work and dedication and time, but we all see it in you. You know what I'm saying? You
You
spreading
haven't
that
seen
kind
nothing
of
yet.
love.
I haven't even gone to the next stage in my development yet. And I'm a zygote. I
Okay,
barely,
you
you know,
barely, you
just
still,
I
yeah.
just got the concepts a little bit. I got all these books I gotta read. And all these, like, I haven't read none of these. I haven't read this. I just got my latest shipment of
Yeah,
things.
for sure. Okay, we appreciate you so much, bro. Before we go, is there anything that you want to share with folks before you go? And also, how can folks find you and find your classes?
Everyone has unlimited potential. Everyone has the same potential to reach Buddhahood in this lifetime. Everyone has that potential. And it's not a joke. It's not something that you're chasing or running after. But if you feel it and you know that you know what I'm saying is true, do not be afraid to make yourself known. Do not be afraid to whisper and walk in the back door of the monastery. Don't be afraid to pray. Don't be afraid to use the technologies of the mind to untangle the mess of negative emotions and past behaviors and purify all of that stuff so that you can live the most perfect, wholesome, and sufferingless life now. Because you don't know if you have tomorrow to suffer some more. You don't know if you have next week to keep living feeling restrained. And the sooner you work on your mind, the sooner you can determine what you actually need to be okay, rather than life around you determining that for you. And it puts you in control of your life for real.
Wow, wow. Thank you, Akesh. We appreciate you. What can't on mind everything you just said is Mayat. Keeping your heart light as a feather. and not moving with too much heaviness on the heart. So yeah, give thanks again for all the information. I'm going to study more about the Buddha. Is it a practice, a spiritual tradition, Buddhism?
It's a lineage.
It's a lineage.
There are 18 main lineages that were students of the Buddha that were all valid students. Out of those 18 students, 5 created lineages and traditions that have lasted over 2,000 years. Out of those 5, there's Gelugpa, Nyingma, Kagyu, Shakya, Drikung, um, Nyingma, Shakya, Kadampa, and um, out of those 5, the lineage that I chose to study in was Kagyu, but I also I've learned from Rime teachers who take all of the different traditions, all of the knowledge of those traditions, and alchemize it, and then pull from every single tradition the wisdom teachings, and that's called Rime, or non-sectarian Buddhism. And I believe a lot in the Rime teachers, who are non-sectarian Buddhist teachers who pull from every tradition the wisdom teachings. And there's an ocean of treasuries of knowledge that are in book format by Jamgon Kongtrul. If you really want to study Buddhism and you really want to get intimate with it, then you need to actually get some of the books, that are the core teachings. And a lot of times people think it's just the Pali Canon. They think it's just the 84,000 Dharma texts. But there have been explanations and elaborations on all 84,000 for like the last 1,000 years, and shashedras, which are colleges of thought and of to develop the nature of the mind. And Shashedra, I think, lasts 9 to 13 years. And that's where you go to basically get your degree of divinity. And the Geshe degree takes 21 years to get the doctorate of divinity that is in Buddhist philosophy. And Buddhist philosophy is Abhidharma, is not a religion. It's a science of looking at reality under a magnifying glass. You know how much I love science, right? So Buddhism was the physics that was missing from my Schumer's reality that actually holds everything together. And I thought everything is love. Okay, yeah, everything is love, but I kept excluding myself. Everything is connected, but everything's another dimension, and everything's a hyperdimension, everything's a multiversal dimension. I could not conceive the infinite degrees that I was perceiving when I had spiritual journeys on entheogens, because I did not have a framework through which there were 3 types of bodies to my body that exist.
Good thanks. Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to do more study, more research, and tap more into this lineage and get more of understanding. So when I, keep my spiritual trips and journeys, I'll be more prepared. Right. Right. Okay, Acacia. Well, yeah, I think we're going to get ready to wrap it up. I'm getting ready to start the presentation at the art gallery right now. We out here in San Francisco, and yeah, I'll be checking back in with you, sending you a lot of love to you and the family out in Texas, and we'll be definitely missing you out here in the Bay.
And if you want to take a class on the
Mhm.
world's best frankincense, we have the last class of Divine Master Alchemy for 2025. You can sign up on my link in bio. It's the first class that when you open my link tree, you scroll down, you see something that looks like the desert. We're going to have Danny Nemu talking about mana from the biblical times and ergo fungus and LSA. He's going to be talking about the psychopharmacology of the holy anointing oils being psychedelic and having psychoactive properties. We're going to be talking about edible frankincense. We're going to be talking about the 10 different species of Boswellia trees that produce frankincense and how each one has different properties for your anxiety, for your mental health, and your awareness. And anybody who's watching this, you will get a small discount from me if you message me. And that's for those who are live viewers. And you can still talk to me about it, but there's 3 days left to sign up, and the deadline is February 10th. So you only got 3 more days. And that is the last class I will be teaching of cultural anthropology from Egypt to Arabia, of frankincense, with 3 master world teachers of frankincense.
Yes, give thanks. So, yeah, if you get a chance, please sign up for the class, tap in. I seen the live y'all did the other day. Very beautiful. I learned a lot just by seeing the
That's
live
gonna
so I can match
fund
the
my
class.
trip to India too, you know. So if you sign up or if you donate, that'll help me go to India so that I can continue the next part of my spiritual journey. And I don't know if I'll be allowed to really talk about it publicly or not. I don't even know if I'll be in public or if you guys are gonna be like, "Where did Acacia go? Did Acacia disappear?" I don't know what it's going to be like. It's gonna be one of those experiences. So if you'd like to contribute to my journey to gaining more knowledge and be able to convey this information, please, you know, I don't care if it's $1, you know, send whatever you can, because, you know, to get this girl to India is nothing short of a miracle. And I've had a lot of friends help out so far and, you know, make a lot of things possible. And so if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be doing this, you know, and that's Baba Kalendi included and the man who's hosting this podcast as well. If it weren't for my friends and, and a little bit of compassion, I don't know where I would be. So thank you all.
Hey, thanks for the occasion. Keep that lineage up and strong, and I'll be tapping in with you soon. Right, Ancient Fridays. Peace.
Bye.